Hello there, Shortcut Stephen here. This is video 2 for the price list, which will go out at 9 p.m. Wednesday, July 17th at Sydney time, 9 p.m. If you would like to be on the price list, then drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. So this list is box sets and classic rock and various other things. I'm going to keep them a secret. I was going to do a quiz question, but I'm actually just going to... I think this list stands on its own. And so, I think there's pop, there's country, there's soul, although not the soul record that you might expect me to talk about. I'm looking forward to that. It is, let's say, the male cousin to Dusty in Memphis. What would that be? What would that be? All right. Well, I am going to start here. So this is a sealed copy of 2011's magnificent box set, Dreams, by the Allman Brothers. Now, that's a sealed copy. So I'm going to show you my copy, and this is the first of 2 times that I'm going to do this with these box sets. So this is my copy. I've had this for years. This is one of my most played box sets. Dreams, the Allman Brothers Band. So the first thing I'm going to say is that name is a little bit misleading because this is not just the Allman Brothers Band. This is 6 records, all beautifully pressed, all sourced from the original analog tapes. There they are. Not much money spent on presenting those 6 records. All the money went into 2 things. An amazing remastering job. This is one of the best sounding records, box sets, records, whatever you want to call it, I have in my collection. Now, you're going to find that a little bit hard to read, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a sense of what there is in here. So this goes back to the bands that the Allman Brothers played in before the Allman Brothers Band. So you've got the Almond Joys, which was I think a late 60s or mid to late 60s kind of early cut of the Allman Brothers. And what you get there is kind of, you can hear the Beatles and Hendrix and crunchy guitars. It is not what you expect when the Allman Brothers. Then you get the Hourglass, another band. Now, I think this one features Duane only. So there's various times through these 6 records when you get Duane, you get Dickie Betts, you get Greg Allman, you get either Greg and Duane or Greg and Dickie, and various machinations. Of course, you get 2 records full of incredible Allman Brothers music. You all know how much of a fan I am. And then you get to bands like Dickie Betts and the Great Southern, Allman and Woman. Allman and Woman is infamous. You cannot find it anywhere. This is one of the very few places you can find vinyl copies of Allman and Woman's songs. If you want to read up why, then be my guest. You get some Dickie Betts solo stuff, which is superb. You get some Duane solo as well. Man, this is 6 records of some of the best American guitar music. Now, I said there were 2 things that they spent the money on. One, sourcing the original analog tapes to create these great records. And as I said, this copy's sealed. This is my copy. But also the book. Now, the book comes in various different colors. And I don't know what the color of the book is in the box that's sealed for obvious reasons. But this is superb. This is a full history of the band, every record, photographs, discography, the history of the various members all the way through, including posters from sets that they did with Buffalo Springfield. I love it. It's so cool. And look, in memory of Dwayne Allman, Barry Oakley, Lamar Williams, and Twigs Linden, who by 2011 had all passed away. Brilliantly written book, beautiful thing, absolutely incredible box. One of the best sounding box sets you will hear in your life. It's great. It's great. Now, I wish I had 10 to hand out to you all. It's super hard to find. I don't have 10. I've only got one, and it's still sealed, which is pretty mad, really. I cannot believe it's still sealed. You can see on mine, because inevitably with the corners you start getting wear, but not on the sealed copy. They're just pristine. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful thing. All right. Now, I said, not for the first time will I be opening one of my box sets. The second box set is this, a sealed copy of Neil Young, Way Down in the Rust Bucket, a 4 LP live concert, nearly 2.5 hours of music, 19 tracks, 3 blistering sets on 4 LPs, live from the Catalyst Santa Cruz, California, November 13th, 1990, which includes the first ever live performances of songs from Ragged Glory, which is one of the great Neil Young albums. Now, you all know how much of a fan of Neil Young I am. In the 80s, Neil Young was an odd cat. He had electronic albums, he had country albums, he had doo-wop albums. Man, he was on a trip. But 1989, he released Freedom. And Freedom was the record that kind of re-centered him. And it's a long, dense, sometimes caustic, difficult record that has moments of genius, crime in the city, rockin' in the free world. And it allowed him to reform, his backing band, Crazy Horse, Ralph Molina, Billy Talbot, etc. And they decided to go out on the road. So between Freedom and Ragged Glory was this tour where Crazy Horse found themselves again. And this is why this ongoing barrage of great recordings from Neil Young is so interesting. He is curating his own legacy whilst he's still alive, and he is releasing, and even a couple of weeks ago, he released an album called Early Days, D-A-Z-E, which is some of the first recordings ever done with Crazy Horse, and it's amazing. I'm going to get it on vinyl. I've got loads of them homegrown. This one, Way Down in the Rust Bucket. Now, this is my copy. Way Down in the Rust Bucket. This is obvious. I'm just going to show you inside here. I stuck the label, the same label that's on the outside of that copy. But in it, you get 4 records. And similar to the Allman Brothers, there's nothing fancy about the records. I've just got mine still in the shrink. But here, you get a little download code, and then you get this, which is a very simple list of credits, just recognizing the crew, where they were, what they did in Santa Cruz when they were recording this live album. Now, this live album does overlap somewhat with Weld. Now, Weld is practically impossible to get on vinyl, except if you buy it as part of the box set that he did last year with Freedom, with Ragged Glory, and with Weld. And that's a very expensive thing. That was my Christmas present to myself. I will talk about that record another time. But I love this one as well. This one is a band rediscovering their love for themselves and music. It is wonderful. It is so well recorded. In fact, I think it's almost better recorded than Weld. Weld is very squally. It's very feedback heavy. This record, not so much. It's a little bit more palatable. But it still has some of the all-time great songs. So, you still got Love to Burn. Now, Love to Burn from Ragged Glory is an amazing song. It's the first time it had been played. Cinnamon Girl is as crunchy as you might ever even imagine. Over and over, another classic song from Ragged Glory. Sedan Delivery, Roll Another Number for the Road from Tonight's the Night. Effing Up from Ragged Glory, which was a song that was beloved by Pearl Jam, Like a Hurricane, and then it finishes with an absolutely mind-blowing version of Cortez the Killer. Oh, again, I wish I had 10 of these. Oh, so good. So good. And really not that expensive, and so good. All right, we're going to crack on. We'll go through a list. Now, I get this record quite regularly, but I very rarely get it with an Obi in this condition. Deja Vu. We've just been talking about Crosby, Stills, about Neil Young. But this is beautiful sleeve, beautiful Obi, one of the all-time great records. The Japanese presses of this record are to die for. I will stand by any pressing ever done against these Japanese presses. Deja Vu, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Shortcuts royalty par excellence. Now, this next record is very different and in its own way as iconic as anything that Neil Young has ever done. This is Hunting High and Low by Aha. Their debut album, I think it was 1984. This is the Japanese first press. This is this period of time when these bands would have top albums and they would release single after single after single. Take On Me, Train of Thought was a single. Obviously Hunting High and Low was a single. The Sun Always Shines on TV. That was a single. It's just amazing. Now, the other thing about these 80s records is you think to yourself, the production's a bit average. I tell you what, time is circular. These sounds, these 80s sounds are still in. They're back, baby. You listen to this record and you'll hear a little bit of, recent Taylor Swift productions, or you might hear a little bit of some of the other kind of radio staples now. It's so fun. And the other thing is you might go, all right, they released 5 singles, but the other 5 songs are duds. Every song on that thing is quality. And so Hunting High and Low, that's super hard to find on Japanese vinyl. It is really tightly held. People don't sell that thing. That's maybe the second copy I've ever seen. All right. I've got a couple of records now that are not Japanese. Now, this is a lovely copy of a record that I have grown to love. It completely passed me by when it first came out. And really, I only started to understand a little bit about it when I first came to Australia in 1997, and I heard Blister in the Sun. And this is the first album by the Violent Femmes. 3 guys, Gordon Gano, Brian Ritchie, Victor De Lorenzo. To be frank, they sound like there's 3 dudes busking out in the street. And that is quite deliberate. It is punk acoustic. But what it is filled with hooks. You will find yourself singing along to these songs the first time you hear them. It's subversive, it's quirky. Gordon Gano's voice, at times he's kind of crooning, and then at other times he is not a million miles away from Black Francis from the Pixies. He has that tortured kind of growl that comes. There's a member of the club, Chris, who I know through other means, he turned me on to this record. It has grown and grown and grown in my estimation. I think it's one of the best American records of the 80s. Very strange way of presenting the lyrics, considering the lyrics are wonderful. But this is a fantastic copy. If you don't have a copy of this on vinyl, it's well worth it. It is much more listenable than the CD. The CD is too thin and harsh sounding. The vinyl is much warmer, much more inviting, much better. It does this record a lot more justice. Highly, highly, highly recommend the Violent Femmes debut album. And you need a nice copy, and that one is. All right, now, at the beginning, I said that I had a soul record in the list, which was not what you expect and was somewhat of the male cousin to the classic Dusty in Memphis, which I've had on the list before. Wow, what an album this is. This is, in my opinion, and it is not even close, and I will include his debut album in this. This is, by quite some distance, Elvis Presley's best album. This is From Elvis in Memphis, 1969. He hadn't recorded anything in Memphis for 14 years, and it was he went back and this group of musicians came around him, and they had a kind of clutch of 30 or 40 great American songs, and they picked and chose, and they settled on 12, and all 12 are wonderful. This is not Elvis cheese. This is not Elvis from the 50s and early 60s. This is a guy whose voice has matured. He sounds incredible, albeit the first time I listened to this record, I thought, oh, his voice sounds a bit fun. And it is because he had a cold for some of these recordings. And you can actually hear that. You can hear that his nose is slightly blocked up. It's just bizarre. But he also had this incredible swathe of musicians around him. He was singing his heart out. His songs are incredible. Think about this. This is the session where they recorded Suspicious Minds. And Suspicious Minds was the non-album single that promoted this record. The non-album single. Oh my God. I so want Suspicious Minds to be on this record. But what you get instead is In the Ghetto. It is incredible. Wearing That Loved On Look, the first track, this is the one I really do think you can hear that he has a cold. You got a song like I'd hold you in my heart till I can hold you in my arms, where Elvis plays piano and sings, but there's all this production around it. Maybe the only criticism, I think sometimes the production is a bit heavy, but it's so good. And this is a really nice Aussie early 60s. I think this is actually a first Aussie press from 1969. Super rare, very hard to find in good condition, and therefore a little bit expensive. But doesn't matter though. Go and listen to From Elvis in Memphis and marvel at how good it is. He is, of course, the standard wisdom is that he was a singles performer, and of course, many great singles. That album is great. Now, I've got a lot of time for this as well. This is Brother, Where You Bound by Supertramp. Now, Supertramp in the early 80s went back to their prog roots, and the music on this is incredibly dramatic and fulsome. If you're a Supertramp fan, you'll love it. But the lyrics are a little bit kind of Cold War, a little bit desperate and not quite what you would expect. But it makes it doubly interesting. All right, I got to accelerate through this. I have a beautiful Japanese first press of Low, David Bowie, one of the best sounding Bowie records, probably the best Bowie album bar none, particularly side one, which I think is absolutely perfect. You've heard me say this before. Short cuts royalty right here. The Japanese first press of Low in wonderful condition. All right, what about this? The Hassles, Hour of the Wolf. This is 1969. This is Billy Joel's first band. He's the lead singer on the Hassles. It has a 12-minute title track, which is absolutely mad. This is, can you see him? Here he is. There he is. Kind of prog, kind of piano. You can hear that he's finding his voice. It's really cool. And I'm not a Billy Joel fan, but I would rather listen to the Hassles than to Billy Joel. I am a Dolly fan, though. And the Japanese first press of Odd Jobs is pretty great. Now, what is on? Of course, this has got House of the Rising Sun, but most infamously and most brilliantly, it's got From 9 to 5. All right, what have I got left? Gosh, I got 5 records. I'm going to have to be quick. This is another Japanese pressing. This is the first press master sound of Santana's third album, Shortcuts royalty once more. You've all heard me say this. This is the best Santana album in my view. There are 2 guitarists. There's a 17-year-old guy who is as good as Carlos Santana on this record. It is less Brazilian and less salsa and more psychedelia and more groove. And to me, that's better. All right. We have the white label promo Japanese first press of Jerry Rafferty's third album, Night Owl. The great Jerry Rafferty. And you know, this run of records that he had in the mid 70s is pretty great. There's Night Owl. I do love it. I don't know if it's quite so good as the second record, but it's pretty fabulous all the same. All right, we have an Aussie first press of The Secret Policeman's Ball. I'll say it again, worth entry alone for the acoustic version of Roxanne by Sting and for the piano version of In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And everyone comes out and sings I Shall Be Released with Jeff Beck, and it's pretty great. We have 2 to go. The Japanese first press of Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. This is in pristine condition. Absolutely perfect. Inner little mini poster. Really nice sounding copy. Of course, one of the biggest selling records of all time. Bruce's. And a little quirky one from me to finish. I love this band. This is Spooky Tooth. If you like raw, bluesy rock from the British, kind of late 60s, early 70s, with big organs and big crescendos and lots of grooves and big power chords, Spooky Tooth might be right up your street. Give it a listen. And if you do like that best of, it's Japanese first press and it sounds stellar. So there you have it, from the Allman Brothers to Neil Young to Spooky Tooth and Aha and Elvis. That's the list for the shortcuts this week. If you like this, make sure and tune in to the Aussie list that goes alongside this. If you want to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. And thank you all for listening.